Attention, everybody, captain on deck.
I was following leads on Confederate supply liners. Came out of warp and it was just there.
Happy birthday, Daddy. Calm down. No! No! I refuse.
A long time ago, in a forum far, far away, I used to frequent this thread where you guess up your favorite games by pointing out the things you like about them. By virtue of being a forum thread, a lot of posts repeated themselves as people would come in and bring up something that was already posted 20 pages ago, so it became really circular. One game that I kept seeing on that thread was Bulletstorm. People loved this game. Its writing, its gameplay, that one line that Jennifer Hale says to Steve Blum,
"Identify yourself or I will open fire!"
Oh, listen, lady, please! We've been stuck here forever! Help us get an evac off-world!
Yeah? Go fuck yourself! You shitpiles give chase, I will kill your dicks!
What? What does that even mean? You're gonna kill my dick? Well, I'll kill your dick! How about that, huh?
Speaking of dick-killing parties.
and not knowing any better at the time, I thought the game must be good if so many people are gassing it up. But I distinctly remember not enjoying it despite all those things I'd heard about it, and every time I come back to it and try it again, I end up reaffirming my feelings towards the game. This playthrough is no different.
Oh, cocksucker. Oh, no. Ah!
I've been racking my brain on how to talk about Bulletstorm without turning the video into a hit piece. I may not like the game, but I don't want to devalue something that clearly had a lot of effort put into it by everyone involved. I think Bulletstorm has the same problem that Spec Ops The Line does for me, where it wants to be subversive, but it's made of the same material as the things it tries to subvert, and so it can never really break free of those conventions, despite all the huffing and puffing from the game and the devs behind the game. But where Spec Ops gets regarded as a satire of Bush-era military shooters and has hours of video essays devoted to it, Bulletstorm gets the same typical YouTuber reviews you'd see for any other game. Is it good to play in 2023? Was it a game? But the thing is, Bulletstorm is also a satire of Bush-era military shooters. The way I frame it is that it's everything the devs thought modern military shooters weren't at the time. A big, colorful environment full of lush vegetation in stark contrast to the drab brown and gray settings that were prevalent in contemporaries. A cast of characters full of one-liners and dick jokes that would make a Tier 1 operative sound like ChatGPT barking NATO codes.
Rumors were true. Final Echo are using leashes.
I thought instinct-moderated weapons were outlawed.
Yeah, they were.
Hey man, if that's gunpowder, we need it. So pull up your skirt and strap that dildo on.
An arsenal of weapons with unconventional alternate fires, coupled with a scoring system that rewards creative kills that make use of the weapons and environmental hazards. A player moveset that allows you to engage enemies with actions that can set them up for aforementioned creative kills, instead of simply thwacking them with the butt of your rifle or stabbing them with a knife. On paper, this sounded great for a kid who spent all summer playing COD and Gears. But then I played the game and realized that it's not as radical as it thinks it is, in every sense of the word. That big, colorful environment full of lush vegetation? It's a nice skybox, but you're still moving through linear corridors with chest-high walls. The hallways just happen to be wider. That cast of characters full of one-liners and dick jokes? Oh, how the pendulum swung on those lines.
Wow, nicely done.
Yeah? Fuck you!
You know who we are?
You're the suicidal limp-dick retards who tanked us.
Easy down.
That arsenal of weapons with unconventional alternate fires? I'll concede, some of them have cool gimmicks, but even the coolest weapons have something holding them back from being truly amazing. That player moveset that allows that. I feel like that's where the game is clawing at the walls of its genre, where it wants to do more than run to cover and shoot, but it doesn't know what it can do besides these actions. For anyone who came into this video not knowing what Bulletstorm is, let's just get this out of the way. Bulletstorm is a 2011 first-person shooter developed by People Can Fly and Epic Games. That Epic Games connection is gonna be important later. You play as Grayson Hunt, an ex-soldier in the Confederate Army who specialized in wet work. After finding out that his team was being used to kill civilians instead of terrorists, Gray goes rogue and brings his team along for the ride following a unilateral decision.
I am gonna kill you!
Hey, man! What the fuck? That was a giant group decision you just made for us!
Now living as space pirates and living in the space equivalent of international waters to avoid capture, Gray and team run into their old commanding officer's warship. Instead of listening to his friend's advice and leaving well enough alone, Gray brings his team along for another ride, following another unilateral decision. Unfortunately, that ride happens to be a downward spiral into the nearby planet. Although the planet looks like a vacation hotspot, it's full of crackheads that kill what's left of Gray's squad. All he's got left is his good buddy Ishii, or what's left of him.
You are going to help me. I am having a difficult time seeing how you can help me. Your drunken thirst for revenge just killed our crew.
Friska, this is Serrano. I'm alive, but stuck on some damned hotel rooftop. Shake that sweet little can of yours. Locals are congregating. I'm in the shit here and need some help.
If Gray and Ishii want to make it out of the planet alive, they're gonna have to work together to reach the former CO and force him to give them a way out. Along the way, they'll run into Trishka, a member of the hit squad that replaced Gray's after his insurrection. Bulletstorm's tagline at the time was "Kill with skill." Instead of hunkering down behind cover and popping up to shoot enemies like other shooters, the game encouraged you to be creative with your mayhem by knocking enemies into hazards or killing them with weapon gimmicks. You can kick an enemy by pressing E. Kicking an enemy will launch them into the air, and they'll hang there for a few seconds so that you can follow up with another attack. Kicking is one of the building blocks for setting up creative kills. Where most shooters map sprint to shift, Bulletstorm mapped it to the spacebar, and double tapping it causes you to slide. You can slide into enemies to knock them into the air, just like you would if you kicked them. The downsides to kicking and sliding enemies is that you're pushing them away from you, and sometimes you want to pull an enemy towards you. Once you get a leash, you can press Q to yank enemies towards you and kill them with any hazards that are in the way. Once you've synced up with a leash and linked it to a drop kit, you can start hunting down skill shots. Every time you pull off a unique kill, you get points. You can spend those points at drop kits to restock your ammo, upgrade your guns, and change your loadout, as you can only carry 2 guns besides your assault rifle. You can also look up what skill shots are available to you with your current weapons and upgrades to get more points. The first time you pull off a skill shot, you'll get bonus points, but each successive instance yields a flat value, but you can get multipliers if you can chain multiple kills with the same skill shot. So, what's the problem with this? It sounds like a cool idea, especially during a time where everyone was stealing Call of Duties in Gears of War's flow. I singled out those 2 franchises for a reason. Let's start with Gears, that's the easy one. Cliff Bleszinski is a creator and original director of Gears of War. He's got a designer credit in Bulletstorm, and you can see him along with executive producer Tanya Justin promoting the game in trailers. Minor correction. Turns out, this isn't Cliff Bleszinski. This is the game's writer, Rick Remender. He's got a background in writing comics, and the only title I know off the top of my head that belongs to him is Fear Agent. Him and Cliffy B just look so similar to me. The most obvious sign of Gears' influence is in the character designs. Big, chunky boys in space armor, flying big, chunky spaceships, hiding behind big, chunky, chest-high walls. Gray was originally part of a 4-man fire team that included Ishii, Rel, and Doc. The Gears connection didn't sink in for me until the game cuts to a flashback showing the team's last op before they went rogue. Something about seeing all 4 of these guys together made me have an MGS4 flashback to Delta Squad from Gears. From there, other things started to line up. Whenever Bulletstorm wants your attention in a specific spot, it flashes a prompt to press right mouse button to focus, and the longer you focus, the more points you get. Yeah, you heard me right. This game gives you points for doing the equivalent of pressing the Y button in Gears of War, and it does the same thing if you keep the rhythm up when you monkey bar across a chasm. Okay, so one of the designers worked on Gears of War. How does it make this game a satire of 7th gen shooters? So that flashback to the team's last mission, does this remind you of anything? This moment is a deliberate reference to breaching set pieces that the modern Calls of Duty made famous. Where those games save those moments for rooms full of terrorists, Bulletstorm has your team do it to a journalist who was looking into your past work. None of you realize that this is the true purpose of your ops until you confront your CO, and this is what leads your team to go AWOL. So, Gears of War pipeline established. Besides that breach parody, how does Call of Duty factor into this game? We gotta talk about duty calls.
The more things change, the more they stay the same.
War. War never changes. Or does it? The war has changed. Did it? The answer is no. Unless it is yes. No, of course it is. It's war. Yes. No. Yes?
Duty Calls was a parody game that the Bulletstorm devs put out to get people excited for Bulletstorm once it dropped. I'm being very generous when I call it a game, because it's really just a shitpost made in Unreal Engine 3. It takes a scenario of every modern warfare campaign and reduces it to a series of narrow corridors where Russian soldiers pop up and say canned lines. You fire your gun at them and they die. Your gunshots aren't actual gunshots, but a guy saying "boring" on the mic repeatedly. For those that remember, the two things that stood out from Duty Calls were that killing dudes would increase your rank to goofy titles, and getting shot by the Russians played this infamous line.
Bloody scream! So real.
When I said that Bulletstorm was a satire of Bush-era military shooters, I'm including Duty Calls to that statement. As far as I know, neither People Can Fly nor EA make this game available for us to play anymore. I had to find a torrent on Internet Archive to get this footage before Chuck Wendig could bring them down. Anyways, playing Bulletstorm without playing Duty Calls first is like playing Phantom Pain without playing Ground Zeroes. I'm sorry if I hurt any of you by saying that. But these are two sides of the same coin. Duty Calls was what the Bulletstorm devs thought of 7th gen shooters at the time, and Bulletstorm was their attempt to go against the grain. But did they?
Did it?
Look at what the devs did in Duty Calls, and compare that to what they did in Bulletstorm. You start the game standing in place while a voice spouts out nonsense. Then you get funneled into a linear corridor until you run into an enemy. You shoot the guy, rank up, which I gotta point out is an awkward joke, as the game is leveling up your multiplayer rank, but you're ostensibly playing a single player campaign, and get shot by another guy and hear the infamous line.
Bloody scream! So real.
You can't avoid this either. The game actually goes to a cutscene, so you have to see this play out. Then you see another cutscene where the NPC makes fun of the pathos in these types of games, as well as the slow motion breach set pieces. Someone over there really hates breaching in COD. Are you picking up collectibles in these games? That's stupid. You can tell we think that's stupid because we're making you pick up stupid objects. Oh, finally, we meet the big bad, and the game wants you to know that he's a big bad because of his unique design.
I have a gravelly voice with a big full accent. I have an eye patch and I wear a nice suit. This means I am leader of bad guy.
Remember, satire requires clarity of purpose because... So, let's jump over to Bulletstorm. For a game that's all about creating spectacles out of kills, it's very plot heavy. In the first mission, you get introduced to the characters, attack the warship, blow up, get introduced to the characters again, but before they became drunken slobs, and learn the reason why Ishii is honor-bound to put up with Gray, despite how unlikable he is as a person. Oh, and for all the clever jabs about Russian stereotypes in COD games, why is the only POC character in this game Japanese? Why have you made him so obsessed with honor? What did you mean by this? How come there ain't no brothers in space? You see how, despite the open skybox, the actual playable area in Duty Calls is a hallway? I'm gonna cut to 3 different areas in Bulletstorm and show you the pathing. Clearly, the playable area isn't as narrow as in Duty Calls, but they're still hallways. Sometimes you reach arenas where you have to clear the room full of enemies before the game says you can progress, but the majority of gameplay happens on these long, winding paths. Like, as much as this game loves to poke fun at Gears, and I'm inclined to believe that's due to Cliffy B being self-deprecating, the first Gears of War has a better grasp of how level design works with enemy and friendly AI to make encounters interesting. Oh no, this character that I just met died and I'm supposed to care about him. The very first objective you have to do in Bulletstorm is find parts so that Doc can rescue Ishii after Gray caused the ships to crash. And the entire campaign is about Gray redeeming himself by saving his friend. Hell, Ishii spells out the theme at the end of the first mission.
I know some black-level bioengineers. We can get you fixed up, Ishii. I swear it on my mother.
Then if I expire, you have failed your last bid for redemption.
Guess so.
Hey, remember those dumb collectibles in Duty Calls? Our collectibles are cooler because you have to drink 20 beer bottles and destroy all the propaganda droids in this game. Remember how the big bad in Duty Calls looks? Here's how the General looks in Bulletstorm.
General Fuckhead.
Awful damn kind of you to aid Trishka in my rescue.
You can tell the General is a bad guy because not only is he as vulgar as everyone else in the cast, but he's super racist to the token Asian character and super sexist to the token female character. These days, you would refer to him as based. Not gonna lie, the voice actor for this character is pretty good, and he does what he needs to do, which is make a villain memorable for the entire campaign. Okay, so I've reduced several of Bulletstorm's elements and compared them against her shitpost marketing bit. Am I being unfair by doing that? I don't think so. Here's my take on satire and parody in video games. You can make fun of things other games do, so long as you realize that the things you do in your games will be scrutinized as well. If your message is, it's dumb when video games make you do this thing, and you make the player do the exact same or similar thing without changing it up in any way that's clever, then I think you're wasting everyone else's time. Like, congratulations, you've astutely pointed out that the Emperor has no clothes, but you're also butt-ass naked. That's why Spec Ops took off and Bulletstorm didn't. I think people gas up Spec Ops way more than they should, but there's a reason why the white Phosphorous set piece left an impact on our collective memories back in the 2010s. It took a commonly used video game set piece at the time, Death from Above from the original Modern Warfare, and made the player take a good hard look in the mirror at what they were doing when they pulled the trigger. All it did was superimpose Walker's face on the same screen you'd use to blow up the enemy team in multiplayer to score easy points. Remember that voice line in Duty Calls? Now here's what happens when you take too much damage in Bulletstorm.
Bloody spree! So real.
Ugh, finally. I'm done with all that high concept crap. Now we can talk about my issues with the combat. Earlier in this video, I described Bulletstorm as a game that wanted to break away from the mold of every other shooter at the time, but it was cast in the same mold as those shooters. It can never really break free of those genre conventions because it doesn't think radically enough. You know how Sprint is mapped to spacebar? That's because there's no jumping in the game. Duty Calls map jump to right mouse button, and it was the saddest little hop I've ever seen in video games that weren't made by modern Rockstar. But the lack of jumping informs a lot of Bulletstorm's limitations. Player movement is restricted to 2 axes, and even though you can slide around in the game, you're not really making use of that mobility in those wide hallway fights. That's why those chest-high walls exist in a game with no dedicated cover button. You take too many hits, you duck behind a wall to regenerate health, and then you get back into the fight. So how does Bulletstorm keep things fresh in these fights? They pepper the levels with various hazards that you can use to kick or pull enemies into to earn skill shots that reward you with points that you can spend at drop kits to do all those things I talked about earlier. Here are my problems with this system. Discovering new skill shots is fun at first because of the sheer novelty, but after that initial bonus, getting those same skill shots nets you a flat rate, which goads you into looking for more skill shots. Some skill shot names are intuitive. Blow an enemy's torso off with a shotgun and you get topless. Kill an enemy while they're on fire and you'll get afterburner. But some are obtuse, and you'll probably never think of getting them organically, and their names don't really provide any insight into what you did to unlock them. If you aim down sights with the assault rifle and shoot an enemy in the balls, and then kill them with a headshot, you'll unlock Mercy. How the hell would I have figured that out if I didn't look at the skillshot database in the drop kit? That database is another issue. If you tell us to be creative with our kills, and then give us a list of possible skill shots we could unlock, all you're doing is giving us a scavenger hunt. Now, I'm not playing organically, I'm thumbing through the database to see which skill shots I haven't unlocked yet. What compounds a skill shots issue is that you can only carry 3 guns at any given time, and one of those slots is reserved for your assault rifle. So you're limited to the weapons you're carrying, as well as whatever hazards are present and what types of skill shots you can acquire. Why the 3 weapon limit? Why the regenerating health? I'm gonna steal another Civvy joke here. Because it was a style at the time. And for a game that brags about how it's not like other games, holy shit, you could call Bulletstorm a pick-me game and you wouldn't be wrong. The guns and their alternate fires aren't as novel as they could be. The assault rifle's alt shoots out a stronger bullet that can melt an enemy. The pistol shoots out a flare that can send the enemy airborne. The sniper rifle's alt turns the bullet into a remote bomb that you can detonate after guiding it. The shotgun's alt is just like if the assault rifle's alt took up more of the screen. The flail shot just makes the bombs detonate on impact, but the bouncer's rounds already do that by default. The bouncer's alt is cool though because it makes a round bounce in place that causes shockwaves and hurts nearby enemies. The only genuinely cool gimmick from the guns comes from the sniper rifle, as firing it while scoped lets you steer the bullet like in the movie Wanted. But then you notice how every target does the exact same juking animation to avoid getting shot. Like, there's no variation to this animation, it's the same maneuver. It makes it impossible to get the nutshot skill shot. I've only ever gotten it once. Also, you need to be locked onto a target to even fire a sniper bullet. The gun that has the farthest reach out of all your weapons needs to lock onto a target or else the bullet despawns. So, barring a few clever gimmicks, most weapon alts are just, the bullets explode now. I think I've hammered my point home to you. The game doesn't buck the trends the way it bills itself as doing. So then, what would I consider a break from the status quo?
They are rage, brutal, without mercy. But you will be worse. Rip and tear, until it is done.
Well, it's not the first to do it, but it is the one that caused a paradigm shift from grounded milsims to the boomer shooter renaissance. Doom 2016 is everything that Bulletstorm wanted to be back in 2011. An FPS that was more about getting cool kills than simulating actual warfare. An arsenal of weapons with alternate fires that complement the core combat mechanics. A melee system that was simple to execute, but rewarded players that engaged in its execution, both on a mechanical level because it provided health, armor, and ammo pickups, and on a visceral level because they got to see really cool executions. And the most important part about Doom's gameplay, the thing that makes it a joy to play as opposed to Bulletstorm, is that it doesn't waste a player's time. Shoot a demon, and if they glow, finish up with a glory kill. The animation takes like 4 or 5 seconds to play out, and then you're back in the fight with your health, armor, and ammo replenished. Your entire arsenal is available at the press of a button. Most weapons have 2 alternate fires that you can switch between during combat. If you want to get the most out of your weapons, you can take on weapon challenges that require you to perform unique kills to unlock the full potential of your firepower, but the game doesn't require you to clear these tasks to progress. Go back to Bulletstorm, and you gotta deal with enemies that are damage sponges that either hunker down behind cover or run up to you to do melee attacks. You're always looking to maximize your score in any given fight, so you're either hunting down new skill shots or trying to chain as many skill shots as possible for the combo multiplier. You kick an enemy in the air or pull them towards you, and now you gotta figure out how you want to kill them while they still have hang time. Eventually, you'll fall back on a simple headshot or hazard kill because nothing inspires you. Sometimes you pick up a chain gun. This should be an awesome moment, but the chain gun runs on battery power, so once it runs out, you gotta drop it and go back to your regular guns. Thing is, this battery runs even if you're not firing the gun, as it's the game's way of controlling which guns you have at key sections of the mission, so you're not breaking the flow of the game. And if you think I'm being unfair in comparing a 2011 game to one that dropped 5 years later, bear in mind that Doom was originally meant to be a more conventional military shooter in development. There are videos of its prototypes of that version of the game available on YouTube, and it's great to see a studio take one look at how derivative their stuff was, go back to the drawing board, and come back with Doom. Truth be told, I came back to Bulletstorm after beating Titanfall 2's campaign and thinking, now that's how you make a futuristic mill shooter fun. We don't have to go all out with Doom and its arsenal to compare with Bulletstorm. I'm a simple guy. All I need is a good shotgun and some schmovement. Again, I'm not bringing up Doom or Titanfall 2 to tear down Bulletstorm. I'm trying to deconstruct what was supposed to be a deconstruction of an entire game genre. Unfortunately, my issues with the game extend to its writing. I like Steve Blum. I like Jennifer Hale. They voiced some of my favorite characters in animation and games. Neither of them are Gray or Trishka. I know I'm not alone in this. Every time I boot the game and my friends see me playing it on Discord, they ask me if I'm playing as Duke Nukem, because Gearbox published the game, and they released a version that replaces Gray with the man himself. And this isn't Duke 3D Duke, but Duke Nukem Forever Duke. That freak. Gray is not a likable protag, and I can't tell if that's the point, or if the writers wanted him to be a scumbag at first, and then have the player warm up to him as the campaign goes on. Ishii hates his guts and makes it known at every passing opportunity, and I don't blame him. Gray's the reason why he's on the run, Gray's the reason why he's half a toaster, and Gray's the reason why he's trying not to lose himself to the AI that's taking over his consciousness. But that whole man versus machine thing muddies his character because he's supposed to be the voice of reason to all the dumb crap that Gray does, but when he gets to Trishka, he goes full on,
"Listen to me, bitch. You will take us to the general or I will snap your neck in half."
So he's constantly ping-ponging between being Ishii and being based. You know how Ishii tells Gray that getting him off the planet is Gray's last chance at redemption? I can't tell if it's supposed to be tragic or hilarious that Gray technically does get Ishii off the planet, but now he's a full-on drone and working for the general to kill Gray in the sequel hook ending. Like, I've wanted to be charitable to this game, but I can't find any goodwill left after ending the campaign like that. Should you play Bulletstorm? I'm gonna surprise you here. You would think that with all the negativity I have towards the game, I'd dissuade you on playing it. Quite the opposite, in fact. If you're curious about what the landscape was like for 7th gen shooters at the time, I think Bulletstorm is integral to understanding where taste started shifting away from the grounded milsims that dominated the market for well over a decade. It's the AAA equivalent of someone flush with money and success having a midlife crisis and thinking that there's gotta be more to life past these chest-high walls. The problem lies with how you're supposed to play this game. The only version that's available on Steam is the full clip edition. That's the one that lets you replace Gray with Duke, and I won't blame you if that's the first thing you do. I bought this game years ago on Origin, back when it was still called Origin, and it's called the Lite version as it doesn't come with multiplayer installed. If you get full clip, you might be out $40 and stuck giving up storage space to a mode that you might not use. What's more important to me is that you play the game with the proper context in mind, and I don't think you can do that without experiencing duty calls first. Either find the game on Internet Archive, or watch someone play through it on YouTube. As luck would have it, I'll post my playthrough of Duty Calls on my channel and link it to this video. I'll keep everything in but that final bit where it shows Bulletstorm as it uses a licensed track. I hope this video doesn't come off too negative. There's a fine line between criticism and disparagement, and I hope I walk that line with some grace. I'm not trying to make the final call on whether this or that game is good or bad. I'm just trying to make sense of what I played and figure out why it is the way it is. I hope that carried through in this video.